An ancient evil awakens, causing the original X-Men team to once again join forces to save a world that doesn't quite hate and fear them anymore. Johnnie Torch takes on X-Men Apocalypse. Bryan Singer seems to have the Midas touch when it comes to the X-Men, as I've ranked all of his 3 previous X films with 5 stars. I think given that remarkable track record is the reason why this film has been given such a lukewarm reception. It's a bit more scattershot than the previous films, with a ton of storylines coming together, some more successfully than others. It may not quite be up to par with its predecessors, but it's not for lack of trying. We finally, after 3 full films in this rebooted timeline, have the classic core X-Men with the addition of Scott Summers and Jean Grey joining the team. I liked Ty Sheridan and Sophie Turner in the roles, and I look forward to seeing their relationship develop in the future. Cody Smith-McPhee brings the triumphant return of Nightcrawler into the series. He does a great job, and I was glad to see they managed to continue to depict his religious nature. I was disappointed that they still leave no inkling to Mystique being his mother. She finds him somehow trapped into some kind of steel cage match with Angel, but apart from recognizing her as the hero who saved Nixon, they really don't have any kind of connection. But given that they at least play lip service to Quicksilver being Magneto's son, this seems like a tremendous wasted opportunity. This new status of Mystique as the mutant who saved Nixon seems to precede her, as practically everyone reveres her now. A strange twist in this timeline, which puts her at odds with her original timeline depiction. In this timeline, mutants don't seem to be regarded as such a fear, given Mystique's grand gesture at the end of Days of Future Past. A lot of hate has been directed at Jennifer Lawrence, it seems, for having such an upfront role in these films, but I enjoy what she brings to Mystique, and in this film she's much more of a supporting player than ever before. The one concession I'll make is that while I reserved judgment on her appearing human more often than mutant in this film before seeing it, I'll confess that rather than it being some important character arc she was going through as I hoped, it really only seems like Jen using her star power to say, "Look, you've got me in makeup for 3 days, make the best of it." Beast is also seen human for a good portion of the film, and I think he too should have embraced his true self at this point. Alexandra Shipp does a great job as Storm. She even does the accent that Halle Berry abandoned after the initial film. She sort of fades into the background in the film's second half, but she managed to make a strong impression in her early scenes as a thief in Cairo. Olivia Munn as Psylocke also has a strong presence for a fairly muted role. She's pretty much portraying the film's henchwoman just like the Rebecca Romijn Mystique was in the original films. Ben Hardy as Angel/Archangel probably gets the least development of the Horseman, and it's a shame he doesn't get to survive long enough to become an X-Men in this timeline. Speaking of odd deaths, Havoc is killed in an explosion. But it feels wasted. Rather than going out a hero, Havoc goes out after taking a stray shot at Apocalypse that only succeeds in blowing himself up and taking the entire school with him. His death has an impact on Scott, but sadly since they only share like 3 minutes of screen time together, it doesn't really feel earned. It does give rise to Quicksilver to come in and steal the show like he did in Days of Future Past, only this time, he speeds into the Eurythmics classic Sweet Dreams. I think it even manages to top his scene in Days of Future Past. They don't shy away from Magneto being Peter's dad, but ultimately Peter doesn't tell Eric, and I can understand that given the context of the situation in the film. I really enjoy the period. Having actually been old enough to remember some of the 80s, I got a kick out of some of the inclusions, such as Quicksilver watching Knight Rider, or the kids watching Return of the Jedi. And for the record, Gene, Jedi is the best. One of the things I wasn't as keen on was Magneto's story, where he spent the better part of the past decade as a blue-collar worker, father, and husband. It was poignant, and Michael Fassbender is a fantastic actor, but it kind of felt like they just wanted to find a way to keep him out of action for 10 years. It was probably as contrived that he was in jail for 10 years between First Class and Days of Future Past, but here, I don't know if I can really buy him giving up the cause like that. And it makes it seem like he's cosmically destined to be miserable his whole life. I mean, hasn't the guy suffered enough? James McAvoy still delivers the goods as Charles Xavier, and his climactic clash with Apocalypse in the psychic realm was a welcome addition, and something from the comics I'd been looking forward to seeing. Rose Byrne returns as Moira McTaggart. It's nice to see her again, but after her involvement in discovering Apocalypse, she's just sort of along for the ride. But I'm happy to see her given her memories back, and it could serve for some interesting stories going forward, seeing that she has a son, as she did in the comics. For his part, Oscar Isaacs makes an impressive Apocalypse. They gave him just enough material to chew the scenery without him coming across as ham-fisted, which a character of this kind can often do. The final battle with Jean unleashing her Phoenix powers was a great resolution, as well as a terrific springboard for the future. As expected, Hugh Jackman turns up as Weapon X, aka the Wolverine. He didn't get one line, but he was one of the highlights of the film for me. Once he starts going nuts on Stryker's men, it was just the shot in the arm the film needed. And to be honest, a lot of people also give these movies grief for giving Wolverine so much spotlight, but he always takes each scene he's in up a notch. I'm really going to be sad to see Jackman go. But we still have Wolverine 3 before that happens. Speaking of which, this film really ups the violence more than ever before. I guess this is a prologue to the much-touted Wolverine 3's R rating. They never really address why Mystique impersonated Stryker in this film. I pretty much knew last film they couldn't resolve it, and I think it was pretty much studio interference that caused that unneeded coda. The three X-Kids being the ones to release Logan kinda felt to me like the much, in my opinion unfairly, maligned X-Men Origins Wolverine, which also squashed Cyclops' origin into the story along with Emma Frost. They finally went back to Stan Lee for a cameo in a next film, and this time it's with his wife Joan. Excelsior! In a way, I'd describe this film as the X-Men's greatest hits. They kinda tried to throw together the kitchen sink of X-Men stories. And I'm impressed with Singer's willingness to begin to embrace some of the more outrageous concepts from the comics like Apocalypse. And to its credit, the film does feel the most comic booky of Singer's X-Men films. The film ends seemingly bringing the franchise full circle with a bald Xavier watching over his X-Men practicing in the Danger Room. If I were to rank them, I would probably have to go X2, X-Men United, Days of Future Past, the original X-Men, X3, The Last Stand, X-Men Apocalypse, and X-Men First Class. It's tough to rank having only seen it once. I might put it over Last Stand after a few more watches, but I don't dislike that film as much as most. But I'm pretty sure I'd put it over First Class, which I don't love as much as most. First Class is still a great movie, though. I'm giving X-Men Apocalypse 4.5 stars out of 5. This is Johnnie Torch reminding you, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.